Okay, so we're going to start with the site setup for your project in, it's in Darlington, and I might even just quickly open up the web page with the satellite view. So I'll just use Google Maps, and actually I'll open up a new page so I can just go to it directly. Luckily Sydney Uni's a nice big landmark, so you can probably just go to it by zooming and panning without knowing the address. I actually don't even remember what the street address is. I do have it somewhere, but essentially it's the corner of Darlington Road and City Road. Or it could be, I think it's just King Street there. That's where it changes from King Street to City Road. And maybe we should have a quick look at Street View, just again so you can familiarise yourselves with it. So it's the University Regiment Barracks or college, and so you might recognise the building that's on the site. We're going to assume that that's been demolished, and you're going to be designing a new proposal for that site in Midrise office building. So looking at it from the other side, so you can see the whole site there. And so I've given you a drawing. I'm just going to open up a File Explorer window. So, or Windows Explorer, it's called in Windows 7, Windows 8, and I think 10, it's called File Explorer. It's the same thing. Do you know what I mean when I say File Explorer or Windows Explorer? Do you know the shortcut to opening one of those? Pretty handy. You can click on the folder button if you have it down the bottom here, which you maybe can't see if you're looking at the video because it's below the screen here, but holding down the Windows key and then the letter E on the keyboard will open up a window for you anytime. So that's useful when you have other programs open especially. And so then you can see here we have the P drive, or the Student Resources drive, where I've made the folder PT7 2017 Semester 1. And then I made a few folders for you. So in the first folder there, Site and Survey, you'll see I have an AutoCAD file given you, and then 2 different satellite images from different services, so Google One and 6 Maps, which we'll come back to in a minute. So I've got AutoCAD open already. I'm just going to close any files that I've opened already, so it looks the way that it will when you start the program. So in the college here, you'll always have a shortcut on the desktop to AutoCAD 2017. Just make sure you don't use the shortcuts to AutoCAD Architecture, because they're a different program. It's AutoCAD with extra things that you don't need and that will actually get in the way. So just use plain vanilla AutoCAD. Double click to open it, and then you should get a screen that looks like this if you haven't used AutoCAD very much before. And then you can just go to the main menu and choose Open, Drawing, not from the cloud, just Open Drawing. Clicking Open File here will do the same thing. And then you can go to the P drive, and then same folder, PT7 2017 Semester 1, 001 Site and Survey, and then you'll see the AutoCAD file again. So I'm just going to click Open to open that. And we're going to assume this is the right size, and it should be. If it's from a surveyor, you shouldn't need to scale it or do anything like that. It should be the right size. So I know this is the right size. I'll show you in a moment how you can check the size of anything, in case you're wondering, when I've inserted the image, which is what I'm going to do first. So on the Home tab, or at the top you can see there all of the tabs, and we're beginning on the Home tab. You can then go to the Insert tab, and you'll see the Attach button. Now watch out, there's another one that says Attach, but that's to attach point clouds. You need to make sure you use the first Attach button, which is in the Reference panel, and you use that tool to bring in all sorts of things, image files, but other things as well, PDF files and lots of other things. So you need to make sure firstly at the bottom there that it says all image files and not something else, and then you can browse to the same folder, again P drive, PT7 2017, site and survey, and then you can see the two satellite images. So I'm going to begin with the 6 maps version because the 6 maps version should be better quality. Notice the difference though. This one, the 6 maps one, has the building still here, which has since been demolished. So the Google one, even though it's not as high detail, has a more recent image which shows the new building being built there. So the Google one will still be useful for other things later, but we'll start with 6 maps. So double clicking there on Darlington Road 6 map satellite. And just be careful here, don't click OK straight away. You need to turn off the scale option, or turn specify on screen off, turn that tick box off in the scale area, and then under insertion point turn specify on screen off as well. So both the tick boxes turned off, and then I'm also going to change the scale factor. I'm just going to make that 1000. If you don't change that, the object will come in with a scale of 1, which for an image will often mean it will be 1 millimetre across, which is just tiny, and it makes it difficult to work with. So if you scale it by a number like this, that will mean it'd be 1 metre across, which is much easier to work with. So that's going to make it a reasonable size as a starting point. Again, 1 metre in this case. You click OK, and then you'll see there on my axis, or my origin of my axis, zooming in there, I can see the image. So it's coming OK, and notice I'm zooming right into the corner so I can see the scale bar. And that's the key to scaling any image that you have like this, just having some sort of reference that gives you a measurement. So if you have a scale bar, you've got a measurement, and you can use that to scale your image or your drawing accurately. So back onto the Home tab, you'll see then, especially if you haven't used AutoCAD very much, a lot of tools use the same icon as Revit. So in the Modify panel, you'll recognise a lot of those icons: Move, Copy, Array, Mirror, Rotate, Scale, Array, and so on. Use exactly the same icon as Revit. So the Scale button you can see there on the bottom of the second column. I'm going to click, and you can see on the command line it tells me Scale, and then it's prompting me to select objects. So I'm going to click onto the border of my image to select it, and then, especially if you have used AutoCAD, what do you think you might want to do to let AutoCAD know I've finished selecting? You know the standard process with AutoCAD? So you'll find a lot of people who use AutoCAD will talk about the need to press Enter constantly, and that's standard in AutoCAD. So to move on to the next stage in the command, that's the normal approach. You press Enter to let AutoCAD know you're finished with that stage and you're ready to move on. So I've finished selecting, and you can see by pressing Enter it tells me 1 found, and now it's asking me something different. It says specify base point, and that's the next thing it needs from me. I'm simply going to type 0,0, which means it's going to scale from this origin point here. So I've typed that in, and again, to move on to the next stage, Enter. So now comes the interesting part. You need to know the size of that scale bar. Now, I've actually skipped a step because I already know that size. But I want to show you the process, so I think I'll cancel this and show you how to work that out. I do know the scale factor, but I'm going to, again, show you how I worked it out. So, we know this should be 10 metres. I've just pressed Escape, in case you're not sure, to cancel, like Revit. And on the Utilities panel here, you'll see the Measure tool. So it's like Revit. You can click on that tape measure, and then you just need to click 2 points, one at either end of that scale bar, to measure the size. So hopefully you can see there 63 point something. I'm going to round that off and say 63 mil is the size. So that's the size it is in our AutoCAD file, 63 millimetres. But in reality, we know it should be 10 metres. So how do we scale that from 63 mil up to 10 metres? And the answer is use that scale factor that I just showed you. So I'll go back to scale, repeating the process, selecting the border, enter, 0, 0 for the base point. So again, that means it'll scale from the corner here. Now again, it's asking me for the scale factor. So the way that we can enter those measurements is to put in the size we want it to be, 10,000 millimetres, 10 metres, so 10,000 / the actual size, 63. And that formula will work in any situation. If you've got a printout of a drawing that you want to change to a different size, you can measure the scale bar, divide those numbers with a calculator, and then put that as your scale factor on a photocopier, and use that approach without even touching your computer. So that will always work. So basically the formula is the size you want it to be divided by the actual size, or the size it is in your file. So the size you want it to be divided by the size it is. Now, don't be afraid to experiment, because you might see, or you might be unsure if you've got it right or not. But what I can do now is zoom out and measure it again and see if it is the right size now. So I'm going to use measure, and now click on the same 2 points either side of the scale bar. There we are, 10,000 give or take. That's as close as you'd ever need it to be. Okay, so that's now scaled and should be the right size. I can see as I pan, and panning works just like Revit if you're not sure, holding down the wheel on your mouse will let you pan, and of course zooming with the wheel if you roll it backwards and forwards. Works the same as well. And the nice thing that happens with AutoCAD is when you pan, holding the wheel down, you'll see the lines without the image. And I can tell visually it's the right size. This is my site, and there's the site we can see at a different angle in AutoCAD. So we know they're the same size, but what's wrong? Exactly, the angle's not right. We've got to rotate the image to match the survey as well. And so to make that a bit easier, I'm going to move the image over to the side. I'll show you a quick way of doing that. Click onto the edge to select it, and then you can click and drag anywhere on the border except one of the corners. You might recognise those corners are a bit like your grips in Revit. They work exactly the same. So I'm not going to click there. I'm just going to click and drag on the edge, not on the corner, and I can easily move that to the side. Now I'm going to go in and draw a line, just to help me, from the corner here of the site. So the corner of the site's roughly there, so it projects from here to about here. And really what I'm trying to pick up is the angle of that side of the site. So I'm just tracing the fence all the way along there, or the edge of the footpath. And can you see why that is the most important boundary for me to make horizontal? That's because looking at the site drawing here, my walls, the way I've been thinking about the design, my walls will be parallel with that boundary. So I want my plans to read horizontally with that wall being straight, a straight line. And so these are the things you should be thinking about when you first set up your project. How are your plans going to be oriented, and how do you maybe need to then organise your other drawings to work with that? Don't always think you need to orient them to true north. That's a common mistake. People think that because engineers and other people often orient their drawings that way, that you need to have architectural drawings with north at 90 degrees, but you do not need that, and it actually will create problems if you do it all the time. So you have, it's called your own project north setting, and that's an option you'll have in Revit as well. So this line here, that is the line that I want horizontal when I rotate this image. So I'm going to make a window just like Revit. You can just click a point and drag, or not drag, so just click and then click again. I might just quickly show you, if you click and drag, it'll do this funny sort of lasso marquee that is harder to work with than what you get when you just click and click again, and you get a nice rectangular marquee. So I've selected the image and the line. Now I'm going to click the rotate button, and I'm going to pick onto the end of my line. You can see the snap symbols are the same as Revit as well, nice square for endpoint. Now I need to use an option, so you can see it's rotating around that point, but I want to use the reference option, and you can simply click on the command line where it says reference, and then I need to click onto the end of that line again, so the same point I clicked on just a moment ago, and then a second point on the other end of that line. And what that's done is set that line as the starting point for my angle. So I'm measuring from that angle, and I'm going to then turn ortho on down the bottom. This is one of the things AutoCAD has that is better than Revit, I think, this ortho option. Click on that, the little right angle symbol, and it locks you to right angles. It's really useful. And there I can just take it over to the left so it's snapping to 180 degrees. So see in that little grey text box next to my cursor it says the distance and then the angles at the end, 180 degrees. So that's all I need. I think the distance doesn't matter. I'm going to click, and we can see now that that line is straight. Or horizontal, I should say. So I'm going to delete that. I don't need the line anymore. And then I'm simply going to select my image. Just be aware that when you select some things in AutoCAD, a bit like Revit, it brings up a special tab or a special panel with options for that object. So in this case we've got an image tab there that wasn't there before, but I can still go back to the home tab and click on say move, just like you can in Revit. So I can click on the move button there, and now I'm going to snap to, I'll snap to this corner actually. So that's what I'm using to pick it up, just like in Revit you pick up things with a base point. Then I'm going to turn ortho off, that right angle symbol down the bottom, so now I can go at any angle, and I'm going to snap right onto the corner in the drawing, the same corner point should be. So that's lined up. I can see as I pan it, it is lined up pretty well, but I can't see the lines anymore because the image is covering them. So again, it's a bit like Revit. You can select the image, but then you just need to right click to bring up the option to change the draw order. So again, something you have in Revit as well, and you can just go centre back. And there we are. So now I've got the lines over the top, and I can see very clearly now that that lines up pretty well. Now, you can do these things in Revit. I just find it a little bit harder to be accurate, but then where I think this really is going to help you a lot is later on, if you want to start drawing in, say, this road coming up here, that's at an unusual angle, you can draw it in Revit, but just trust me on this, it will be much easier to do lines at angles like that in AutoCAD, and then you can simply reload this file in Revit, and when you're making your subregions in your topo surfaces, you can simply pick those lines, because you'll probably have many subregions with the edges touching, and it's much easier just to pick the lines you've drawn in AutoCAD instead of drawing all these subregions individually in Revit. So it'll help you a lot with that, and also hopefully we'll get you used to having linked files in Revit, and that's the next thing I'm going to show you. So I'm going to save this file. That's as far as we need to go in AutoCAD at the moment. I'm saving the file. I'm not saving it so you can get to it. You'll need to make this again yourself. So I'll save it here with a new name. And then I'm going to switch over to Revit. So again, if you're working in the college here, you'll have a shortcut to Revit 2017 on your desktop. And that's the version you should download, of course, mainly because the rendering program's different. So if you're using 2016, you won't be able to get it to render in the same way that 2017 does, and vice versa. And it's not backwards compatible either. So if you save a file in Revit 2017 on the computers here, you can't then open it in Revit 2016 on your own computer. So you should get the new version. But as always, the architectural template, is that what you've been using mostly? Or you've been given a template, maybe? Yeah. Look, it's good when you're given templates because they'll have a lot of things done for you, but it's also good to know how to work from scratch without anything being set up for you. And so I usually teach Revit with the architectural template as a starting point, because then you do need to set up everything. But it is set up fairly well. It has a lot of the things that you need set up for Australia. The others don't. Construction template and structural template and mechanical aren't as well set up for Australian drawing conventions and standards. So watch out for those, but the architectural template is pretty good. So if you click there on the home screen, you can tell that it's begun with the right file because it'll have ground floor as the starting view. I'm going to switch straight to the site plan. Of course, double clicking to open the view. And then, have you done duplicating of views? You must have, yeah. So you do this all the time with your plans especially. So when you right click, duplicate view, and then here I just need to use duplicate. And then I'm going to right click on that new view, site copy one, and go straight to rename, and we'll call this site satellite. And then I'm going to go to the Insert tab and use Link CAD. So you see there is an option to import CAD, but then if I change the AutoCAD file, the changes aren't updated in Revit. So instead I'll be using Link CAD because I want to change that AutoCAD file. Okay, so I'm going to go down to find the file. So you'll need to have your own file saved. So there's my file. Now, there's a really important option here. Whenever you bring in, especially an AutoCAD file, if you know it's 2D, I'd recommend you use this option every time. Current view only, every single time, if it's 2D. Otherwise, it's going to come in all of your views. And you don't want 2D drawings in your 3D views, for example. So if it's a 3D AutoCAD drawing, you might leave that option turned off, because you'd want the 3D object to be visible in all of the views. Okay, but I'm turning that on. And then I'm also going to set some of these options. The import units normally will work with auto detect, but if you know the units, it doesn't hurt to select them, and the units are millimeters. Colors I'm going to leave on preserved, but black and white sometimes is a good option there, but I'll leave it on preserved. And then the positioning. I'm just going to choose one of these manual options. I think I'll go for manual center, so it doesn't come in pinned or anything like that. I want to move it. And that's it. So I'm going to click open. And then it'll just take a moment because it's got to read it off the network. It's not a huge file, but I know, having done this a couple of times now on these computers, it takes a minute. Once it comes in, it's okay. It's just, I think, reading it from the network is a bit slow. It'll probably take about 20 seconds, maybe a bit longer, but it will come in. And once it's in there, it won't slow it down too much. Here we are, there it is. Okay, so I'm just going to click roughly to place that. What I'm trying to get is the site centered roughly over that, that base point in the middle there. But I'll do that, I'll confirm it afterwards. So I'm just clicking to place, and then, what's happening now? I haven't got the image. Maybe it didn't get saved. So we'll check that in a second. So it should have the image file. That's a bit unusual. I'm just going to save this file and then go back into, on the Insert tab again, I'm going to go to Manage Links and then CAD Formats, and you can see there's my inserted file. To bring in any changes, you just click Reload and then OK. And that hasn't worked. Okay, so I'm going to do that again. I'm going to delete that. So I've selected it, deleted it. Sometimes you do get issues like this, but it's not meant to work that way. So again, Insert tab, Link CAD, That is definitely the one. You can see the satellite images there. So let's just make sure this is all okay. That looks pretty good to me. Okay. This shouldn't happen when you do it. I've got another version saved. I'm just going to try that. Oh no, that's different. Okay, this is a bit strange. So what I might actually do is close everything. Shouldn't have to do this. So yours will probably work first go, but there are still bugs with Revit. It does occasionally have errors. Okay, so I'll just duplicate this and maybe it's because I didn't use the with detailing. You shouldn't need detailing, but just in case, I'll try that option. So again, insert link CAD. Here's my file, current view only. No, somehow I got it loaded in. Notice how it went really quick then. So I'm going to, what am I going to do? I'm going to save this into a different location. I think actually it's juggling because the images maybe aren't in the same place. So this might help you as well if you make sure that you have the image files in the same folder as your AutoCAD file. Might help it. This normally, I've never seen this actually work this badly before. Yeah, well, we've got the same computers at Emmore. There we go. Okay, so that's all it was. So yeah, it should be able to find the files in any path really, but I think because we do have a huge network, it's struggling when they're on different network devices. So so yeah, that's a good tip. Keep the image file in the same folder to make it easy for the program. So I'll just have to rename the file, the view like I did before. So again, site satellite. So it's come in, we've got our satellite image, and we can see some of the lines, but of course, a bit like what happened before, the image is covering a lot of those lines. And like I was also saying earlier, there's no easy way of editing AutoCAD files in Revit. It should work because they do have options here for, say, deleting layers and doing other things. But it's very difficult and quite limited. So you're better off making changes back in AutoCAD. AutoCAD is the program made to edit those files. And what I want to do is put this image onto its own layer. So I'm simply going to go into the Layer Properties panel here. Click on this button here, which will make a new layer. And I'm going to call it Image. Going to make it a colour that will stand out. Nice bright one, that'll do. And then click onto the border of my image, which you can see again takes me to that image tab. So I'm going to go back to the Home tab and I can see my layers and just choose Image. And I can tell it's on the layer because the border has changed colour to match the layer. So I'm going to press Escape, save the file. Now that we know it's working, we can easily reload that. But before I do, I'm going to right click on that view, which is obviously Site Satellite, and again duplicate. This time, it's really important that you choose Duplicate with Detailing, because that AutoCAD object is considered detailing. So that's, if you've wondered what that option does, that's one of the things you need to think about. So again, Duplicate with Detailing, and I'll right click and give that a better name. So I'm going to call this Site Survey. And now, do you know how to adjust your visibility settings in Revit? Okay, a really good option that people don't use as much these days as they did before is this one over here, Visibility Graphics Overrides. It's got a long funny name because they've stuck that graphics overrides thing on, but it's really visibility. Everyone would use it if it just said visibility, but graphics overrides are something that you'll do sometimes, but the visibility is the more important thing. So when I click that edit button, you'll see it's got a list of all of the categories with a tick box to turn them on and off. So that's how you can turn on and off whole categories. I'm sure you know that you can right click and go hide in category, hide in view category, and that does the same thing, but this way you can do a whole group of objects and you can store those setups and reuse them. So you have, as well as the model objects, you've got annotation categories, so your dimensions and your text and all those other things are on this list. Reference planes, they're all there. And then this is something you can't really do with the tools you have on screen, imported categories. And there you will see the imported AutoCAD file, and there are the layers. Now what's missing? Exactly, the layer I've just made isn't there. And that's because, exactly. So all I need to do now is go back to that Manage Links tool on the Insert tab, find the file, CAD formats, there's my file, click Reload, and that will bring in any changes I've made in AutoCAD. So now, if I go back to that button, and the shortcut, by the way, is VV. So I use that one quite a lot. And then under Imported Categories, expanding my drawing file, there's the image layer. And I can just turn that off. Click OK, and there's the line work. Now, I'm going to pin this. If I select the AutoCAD file, I can click on the pin icon, which will lock it. But you need to remember to pin it in the other view as well. So this is considered a separate object because I've duplicated the view. So I need to go back and pin that one as well. All right, and then back into... Yeah.
And that will also pin the map as well, the satellite.
Exactly. That's right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, pins them together, but you do need to pin them in the two different views. Yeah. So if I'd pinned it first and then duplicated the view, I wouldn't have had to pin it again. But yeah. So okay, so there, that makes it easier to see the lines. And just very quickly now, I can go to the Massing and Site tab, go to Property Line, and Create by Sketching. So this option I mentioned before, entering distances and bearings, is very difficult to work with. But Create by Sketching is quite simple. You click there, then you can simply use the Pick Lines tool, the last button in that draw panel. And with any luck, you can just go to the edge of the property there, find the boundary. Before you click to select it, press Tab, and it will give you a chain. And you can choose all of the property lines with one click. Done. Tick to finish. And now to make sure that's working, I can go back to my original site plan, just to make it clear why I've duplicated all of these views. And I can see the site there fairly clearly. The problem is that it's actually a bit low. So I want to move that now to a better location. I'm bring up pinned, so it's a little bit out of order, but it's good because this is the way you really will do things in real life. So maybe just to make things easier, I'm going to draw a reference plane that's at the height I want that property line to be, just up here somewhere. Okay, so now I'm going to be very careful. I'm going to select my AutoCAD file in this view and unpin it. And then I can, I was going to say I can move the property line, but I'll just do it step by step to make it clearer. So I'm going to click on the Move button, pick it up on that edge, and then take it up to my reference plane. You can see the boundary didn't go with it because I hadn't selected that, so I can simply select it afterwards, click Move, and snap it same way. Now again I need to select my AutoCAD reference and pin it. Now back to Site Satellite, and I need to do the same thing there. So I've got to select it, click Move, and then take it up to the same point. Oh, so I forgot to unpin it. Unpin it, now move, Just being careful here to get it right, and then I can pin it again.
Why are you moving them up again?
Oh, okay, so looking at this one, it's probably clearest that the centre of my views is here. So I could have moved that down in the section and the elevations, but it's probably easier to get the site centred roughly and then just fine tune the parts you
So
need.
you want that thing there in the middle of the site, not...
Yeah, it helps. Yeah, that's your base point essentially. It can be anywhere, but it does help if it's near the centre. Just makes it work better. So now all I need to do before maybe well, I'll give you a break as well, but you can also have some time to work on this. I'm going to make a window left to right to select the elevation views. So if that's not clear, if I was to do it right to left, notice how it gives me a dashed line when I click and drag, and that's going to select the things inside that window, but also anything it's touching. And that means it will select the boundary and the reference line or reference plane and maybe some other things. I don't want that. So I'm going to make a window left to right, which will only select the things inside the window, not the things that it touches. So you need to remember that elevation views usually contain at least two objects. You have the symbol or the reference, which is the circle, and then the arrow itself is the view. Okay, so you need both of those things to move together. If you move just one or the other, again, can create problems. So click and drag, and you'll get both of them, and you can tell in properties that you have two in brackets there. So now I can simply either click and drag with the mouse, or do you know the other way of moving things by eye with Revit? Yeah, the buttons on the key. Yeah, the arrows on the key. That's the easiest way. So the arrows on the keyboard will nudge it to the left. Hold down Shift, and the arrows will move it further. And so you just want to have the elevation outside of the boundary so that it won't cut through the building. Really important with this one, because otherwise it'll go through the middle of the building and be more like a section. So I'm going to click and drag to get that one. Again, two things there. And with Shift, nudge it over to the right. This one here can maybe come down a little bit, but we'll fine tune that once the building's in there. And then the section line maybe can become a bit longer too. So it's nice to have those things just set up roughly so that when you start modelling, you can then work with those views and know that you'll see what you should be seeing. Oops, wrong place. Okay, so that's not a bad setup, and that reference plane would be helpful, so I'd just leave that in there because that's a helpful thing to have later on. Right, so that's going to be a good starting point. I'll give you a little bit of time to do that, maybe have a break as well, and then we'll continue on.